Today's episode of Off the Timeline is titled, What If Tim Tebow Transferred to USC in 2009? In the real 2009 season, one quarterback defined college football. Tim Tebow led Florida into his final year as one of the most dominant players the sport has ever seen. But in this alternate history, Tebow never takes another step for Florida. Because before the 2009 season even begins, Florida football suddenly disappears. Four programs collapse, a transfer window opens, and the most famous quarterback in college football ends up somewhere no one expected, USC. And when that happens, the entire 2009 season changes. Now let's set the table for the collapse. The butterfly effect starts quietly. In this alternate history, a financial investigation into athletic department funding uncovers a web of violations tied to TV revenue sharing and booster payments. The NCAA reacts aggressively. Instead of sanctions, four programs are forced to suspend operations indefinitely. Those programs are Florida, Houston, Baylor, and Washington. Suddenly, hundreds of players enter an emergency transfer window, but one player matters more than any other, Tim Tebow. The reigning Heisman winner, a national icon, and now the most sought-after transfer in college football history. And that sets the table for the recruiting. Programs immediately begin recruiting Tebow. Three schools emerge as serious contenders. First, Alabama. Nick Saban sees Tebow as the missing piece for a championship offense. Second is Tennessee, a historic SEC power trying to rebuild. And third is USC. Under Coach Pete Carroll, USC is already one of the most recognizable brands in college football. The Trojans sell Tebow on a national stage and a championship roster, and a chance to dominate the West Coast. And you may be thinking to yourself that Tebow leaving the SEC would never happen. But in this alternate history, Florida doesn't exist anymore. There's no program to return to. And Tebow makes a decision that shocks the sport. He transfers to USC. And that sets the table for the super team. The moment Tebow arrives in LA, USC becomes terrifying. The Trojans already had one of the most talented rosters in the country. Now they add a quarterback who's already won a national title and a Heisman Trophy. Suddenly, the Pac-10 looks completely different. USC steamrolls early opponents. The offense is built around Tebow's power running and red zone dominance. The defense is already elite, and the Trojans quickly climb to number one in the country. But the ripple effects don't stop there, because Tebow wasn't the only star looking for a new program. And that sets the table for the Big 12 chaos. Another transfer changes the balance of the Big 12, RG3. Instead of developing at Baylor, Griffin lands at Kansas. They sell him on a simple idea: be the face of the program, and RG3 delivers. The Jayhawks suddenly have the most exciting offense in the Big 12. And you may be thinking to yourself that Kansas could never compete in the Big 12, but Griffin's athleticism completely changes the math. Kansas doesn't dominate, but they become one of the most dangerous teams on the schedule, and the Big 12 race turns into offensive chaos. And that sets the table for the Big 10 surprise. Another ripple appears in the Big 10. When Florida collapses, several defensive players transfer north. One of them is star cornerback Joe Hayden. He lands at Northwestern. And you may be thinking to yourself that Northwestern making a title run sounds unrealistic, but in this alternate history, the Wildcats suddenly have an elite defense, and they start winning games nobody expected, including a huge upset over Ohio State. And this sets the stage for the late season twist. By November, USC looks unbeatable, Tebow is dominating, USC is undefeated, and the national championship feels inevitable. Then the rumor mill hits. Pete Carroll may leave for the NFL. The story goes viral across sports media. And suddenly, USC doesn't look quite as focused. The distraction shows up in one critical game against Oregon. Oregon pulls off the upset. USC loses its only game of the season, and the BCS race suddenly becomes chaos. And that sets the table for the championship. When the final rankings are released, the championship matchup is set. USC versus Texas. It's Hollywood versus the most balanced team in the country. And the final game of the season, Texas wins a thriller. 35-31. Longhorns take the national title, And the most famous transfer in college football history comes up just short. One investigation, 4 programs disappearing, and the biggest quarterback transfer the sport had ever seen. That's the butterfly effect of this alternate history. Because when Tim Tebow leaves Florida and joins USC, the entire 2009 season changes. And if you enjoyed this alternate history scenario, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and check out the next universe videos on the end screen, where we explore other moments that could have completely changed college football history.